My name is Angela Proctor. I am the archivist at Southern University in Baton Rouge, Louisiana. We are in the Camille Shade African American section of the library. And right now, we are going to be looking at a collection specifically from the archives, which I'm really, really proud of. We have in our archives a original set of slave narratives, which are dated 1935. They are compiled and created by John Brother Cade. The name of the library is named after him. He was the first dean of the institution, as well as the director of our Extension Services Center during the 1960s at the institution. And with our slave narratives, when Mr. Cade was here, he was also the history instructor. And what he did was that he utilized the students in the history class, and he assigned them the project to interview slaves. And the slaves were to go out and interview, the students were to go out and interview former slaves or ex-slaves. And from there, he had given them a set of questions that he should actually ask the slaves. And all of these questions dealt with the social conditions of the slaves and things, for instance, the master of the slaves, the social conditions like the type of foods that they were allowed to eat, the clothing, the punishments, the religion, and various aspects that dealt with the social conditions of former slaves. And just to give you an idea, the collection that we're dealing with comprises of 16 different states and one country, which is Canada. And the box that we have here is called a record storage box. And all the narratives are arranged alphabetically by state, and then within the states, the narratives are arranged alphabetically by the name of the slave. And so just to give you an idea of what they actually look like, they're also encapsulated, so we've done the necessary precautions in terms of trying to preserve them. The name of this slave is Miss Ann Boyd. She is from Alabama, and the type of slave, she worked in the house, and at that time she would be considered a field slave. And her owner was named Mr. Odom. And then so the good thing about these narratives as well is that a great deal of them were also signed by the interviewers who happened to be students. So we are very, very proud of this collection. And so one of the things that we actually did is that we, the library went out and we purchased a database, an archival database that will allow us to be able to create and scan these narratives and then be able to have finding aids for these specific narratives. And so the public would be able to have access to them by going directly to the web. So right now I'm up to 249 narratives.
How many are there total?
According to the historical documentation, we have a total of 400. But in addition to this specific collection, there is another set that deals with the WPA, which is the Workers' Progress Administration. So that collection is specifically for the state of Louisiana. And right now we have about 48 of those as well. So that would be a separate collection for what we're looking at right now.
What were some of the, going through these archives or going through these collections, what were some of the most interesting things that you came across?
I think the most interesting thing about that would entail the punishment. For instance, how the slaves were actually treated. And I remember one narrative in particular, I can't remember the slave's name, but he was tied to a tree by chains and he was whipped until the blood ran down his back, and then they took dogs and then encircled the dogs around his body while the blood was dripping from his back. And then there are other cases where the slaves were also beaten until they had blisters, and while the blisters were open, they took salt and poured salt directly into the wound. And so just to imagine the kind of treatment that they dealt with was just very, very horrendous from that time.
How long did it take these students to put this collection together?
I don't have the necessary background in terms of the time frame, but I would imagine, because this was a class at that time, a semester, because the class consisted of over 25 students at that time.
And how long do you think it's going to take you to get through the rest of them?
Just to give you a little background, we actually purchased the software and we implemented this in 2009, August of 2009. So I'm 2 years out. So I am hoping my time frame is next year by the summer, and we will be ready to present to the general public by the fall semester.